Welcome back. It's 7:44. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Martin and Anne.
Well, joining us to go through some of the day's headlines today, Assistant Editor for The Spectator, Cindy Yu, and Deputy Editor of Spiked, Fraser Myers. And, of course, well, you've got to talk about Boris Johnson joining GB News. But actually, he's not the first former Prime Minister to front a TV programme.
That's right, and I think we've got a clip here. Let's have a look at a previous example of a former Prime Minister presenting a television show, and that's Harold Wilson. Here it is.
It's been 9 weeks now that ITV has been on strike, and even some members of the crew here at the BBC seem to be missing it. And I can't think what Reginald Bosanquet's been doing with all that spare time. But certainly the most missed programme, the one we've all missed most, is the serial that has kept many of us at home whenever we could be at home, every Monday and every Wednesday for nearly 20 years. Coronation Street. So to go some small way to repairing this loss, let me introduce the lady described by Jim Callaghan as the sexiest thing on television. Pat Phoenix.
He was quite good,
He was good, yeah, very good.
I remember doing that, and I was just trying to think what year it would have been. He was just saying ITV have been on strike now for 3 months. That was the year that I joined ITV, because the only place... I joined ITV, and they immediately went on strike. Nothing to do with my arrival, I don't think. And the only place I could afford to eat was to go back to the BBC canteen.
No, cross-pollinating.
Even though I'd actually officially left, the BBC canteen was the only place I could afford to eat, because nobody was paid for 3 months.
Yeah.
It was the longest ever strike, I think. The whole of ITV went dark for 3 months. Have you found out what year it was?
No.
Something like 79 or 80,
I think it was. It'd be that sort of it, but he was actually really funny.
Yes, he was good.
I suspect Boris Johnson will have a slightly different style, less dry, more bombastic.
More, I don't know, absolutely. Yes, and lots of long words.
Yeah.
Yes.
That, you know, he has to then explain.
Yeah.
what's been
Inverted pyramid of piffle was a
yeah.
good one. Protoplasmic jelly was the other one.
Oh, that's very good, Fraser.
What's been interesting, though, since the announcement yesterday afternoon of Boris being signed to GB News, there's been a huge reaction, as you'd expect, and you'd probably say there's equality between those who like him and those who don't. So in that sense, it's created a big ripple already.
They'll still watch, won't they?
That's it.
Yeah. If you're violently opposed to somebody doing a television programme, you still watch, don't you? So you can have a good old criticise.
He's fundamentally an entertaining person. You know, he's the way that he talks, his vocabulary, it doesn't have to be long words, it's just funny words.
Yeah.
He's just got a creative, original way of going about things. And that's why what made him such a good writer as well.
And I guess what a lot of people will be hoping here at GB News is that he'll call on his retinue of friends to come on, and enemies, I'm sure, and it'll all make for very good stuff. Anyway, we know no more than that. We don't know when it's all starting, what time of day or anything like that. I don't imagine he'll be getting up at 3 in the morning to come in on breakfast.
not like troopers like you, but I do think it's going to start in the new year. He said there's going to be presenting programmes. He wants to go on a tour of Britain, he says, to look at great British business, things like that. Whether that happens or not remains to be seen. And he's going to be a contributor and a presenter. And I'd quite like to see him getting cross-examined by some of his opponents.
Yeah. Will he go to Peppa Pig World?
An
example of a great British business.
But Martin, you're right, you know, just see him defending his record, you know, on some of the lockdown stuff, COVID stuff. It will be really interesting for this particular channel. You know, I'd love to see Bev versus Boris.
And I think that's been...
somebody very wry on another channel was saying maybe he and Carrie could do a makeover show where they, you know, grandiose designs, I think they called it. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. We have no idea, and probably neither does Boris at the moment.
It's a big name signing. It's getting people talking. I think it's great for the channel. It'll just get more eyeballs coming in, and that's the point.
Can we zip ahead, Fraser, to this story about a fake photograph that has been used on Twitter, or now called X?
Yeah, so Jerry Adams, who people will know from Sinn Féin, shared this picture of a father carrying his children out of the rubble from Gaza. And it was generated by AI, and it's completely fake. And you can see, if you look closely, that it's fake because some of the children have 6 toes, some of them have 3. You can see parts of their body sort of merging into each other. It's very strange. I'm trying to understand what is the motivation for sharing something like this. Because, you know, there's absolutely no one who doubts that there are real horrors happening at the moment in Gaza. And there is lots of video and photographic graphic evidence of this. What is it about this AI image? What is it about these fake images that draw people to?
Maybe it's just because he saw it and found it so shocking. He just wanted to pass on the message that this is just terrible, what's the world coming to?
And I think also it might be to do with the way that it's kind of staged, you know, the father is in the sort of centre holding the children. There's something almost a little bit sort of tragic and heroic at the same time about it. But it's interesting how people are drawn to perhaps fake stuff maybe more than the real stuff.
It asks questions, doesn't it, Cindy, about the propensity to suspend disbelief or not to fact-check, because, of course, people like Gerry Adams agree with the political position of this fake image. Therefore, they bang it out without stopping to check its veracity.
Well, look, we all have confirmation bias, you know, as human beings. We all are victim to confirmation bias. We like to think, we like to hear things that we agree with and then just kind of like disregard other stuff that we don't agree with. So that's understandable, but especially online, especially with someone of his following as well, you really need to fact check everything. In this current day and age, like when you see a new photo these days, my first reaction is that actually real?
No, we've got the image here we're showing now. If you're listening on the radio, it is a harrowing image at first sight of a father carrying children out of an absolute rubble mess behind him.
He's carrying 4 children. He's got them on his arms, 2 on his back, 1 he's leading by the hand. And when you start to look at it, even not closely, Fraser, you can see that the limbs are intertwined in a way that doesn't quite seem natural. But again, as you say, it ticks all of the boxes. There's demolished buildings in the background. They're all covered in dust. It's children in a war zone. It's the sort of image, Cindy, that people like Gerry Adams want to believe is real.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think, you know, just to continue, it's about being on social media and having that discipline to fact-check everything before you quickly share something, which is... The temptation is definitely there, but for someone of Gerry Adams' following, you know, you need to really fact-check that.
Well, talking about important people putting things out there, Cindy, tell us about, Rachel Reeves, Shadow Chancellor, and the mess she's gotten herself into.
So Rachel Reeves has a new book out talking about female economists and how they don't get nearly enough credit for their work, which is true, but it seems like she hasn't been giving people credit for their work, because actually in the book, the Financial Times has found that there are more than 20 examples of whole passages lifted from other sources, other books, Wikipedia in some cases. And Rachel Reeves is basically not really apologising for it. She's saying that I had researchers do this, you know, I didn't fact check it properly, but it's not me who did the play. You know, it's fundamentally embarrassing for her. So a rising star in the Labour Party,
so
someone who might be our future chancellor.
They haven't, on her behalf, copied and pasted things and then attributed it to somebody else.
It
looks as though it's her writing.
It's her words, And of course, you know, politicians who write books use ghostwriters. We know this. They use researchers, they use ghostwriters. That's not so much a problem. So I do feel sorry for her, because she would not have known about this until probably the FT found out.
I wonder if, because this reeks to me of an undergraduate cheating when they write an essay at university. And the sort of people that no doubt would have been helping Rachel Reeves are those kinds of people. So it sort of feels like to me that like young political aides have kind of been out there harvesting information for her. She's more or less signed it off. It probably wasn't her that did it. But it does look terrible when it's all about, you know, women who haven't got credit, and she's not giving women credit.
Yeah, and she sort of put out this non-apology that says, well, you know, if I copied and pasted this in the service of highlighting great women, then I'm proud to have done it, which is just ridiculous. Now, I think, you know, plagiarism is a very serious offence. It has destroyed political careers in the past. In Germany, 3 different ministers resigned in the past decade or so over accusations that they'd plagiarised in their doctoral theses. Joe Biden, people might remember, his first presidential run was scuppered partly because he plagiarised a speech by Neil Kinnock.
Of all people.
Of all people to plagiarise. And who is Rachel Reeves plagiarised, as well as the Wikipedia people? She's plagiarised Gordon Brown and Hilary Benn, not the most inspiring individuals. So, yeah, you know, I kind of think that she should take this a bit more seriously. I don't know whether she should resign or anything like that, but I don't think she should be able to brush it off.
No.
Yeah.
It also just raises questions about, you know, people have called her the sort of copy and paste shadow chancellor. I think that is a fair criticism, because if you look at the difference between her fiscal policy and Jeremy Hunt's fiscal policy, there's not a cigarette paper between them, is there? You know, she's never had an original idea.
It's also worth pointing out that the essays at universities now get put through software which can detect plagiarism because it compares them to everything out there.
Well, yes, if I were Rachel Reeves writing a book which maybe she didn't know that a lot had been copied and pasted, but you'd have your own anti-plagiarism software.
Well, also publishers, publishers and editors should be doing that. And so this Guardian write-up is actually talking about to publishers about, what is the industry standard here? You know, do you just take copy from a writer and just run it? Surely you check it. And actually, it does seem like the whole industry has slightly a bit of a problem with low thresholds of something that gets published, and they don't really run it through that kind of machinery.
And actually, when you go back to AI, if you get what's that? The bot that writes
ChatGPT.
Thank you, ChatGPT. If you ask it to write you an introduction to an item you're talking about on the news or an introduction of a speech, if you ask it to do that, does it plagiarise? Does it lift from other sources?
In my understanding, it doesn't, because what it does do is it might go for cliches, but it will probably just write original language, but that's because it's predicting the next word. So using its source data, it will gather what's the most commonly phrased things on the internet, but it will rewrite those.
It's interesting that the whole conversation's come together, really, the fake AI image and plagiarism and what's true, how can the truth be bent, plagiarised, lifted, reappropriated or entirely faked. I think Fraser is going to become a bigger part of the political landscape moving forward.
Definitely, and in a way, we should always be sceptical of what we read. It shouldn't have taken the AI revolution to make people sit up and think, I need to check my sources, I need to know that this is original, I need to know that this is true. I mean, it's interesting thinking just about the sort of disinformation question. Understandably, there's a lot of disinformation flying around about the war, but
we're going to be talking.
Media
sorry to cut you short because we're just at the end of our time, but we will be talking about that quite a lot a bit later on in the programme as well. Do stay with us. You're watching Breakfast on GB News.